Okay, welcome everyone to the African Forum on Green Economy webinar that we're running today. Thank you ever so much for joining. We've got an excellent panel here to talk us through what is probably one of the most important subject matters that we're going to be covering in this 3-month event that we're running here online around the African Forum on Green Economy. And I'm sure all of the other speakers in the other weeks are going to say their topic is more important. And I'm sure that you're going to find out today that the agriculture that we're focusing on today is the one that you should be listening to. So thank you so much for joining. As you will probably be aware, this event was planned to be held in Kampala this month, but due to current circumstances, we've now moved all of this online. We hope that all of you are safe and well in these difficult times. I know it's extremely challenging for many people all around the world to be able to understand how they can cope with the virus at the moment. But this gives us an opportunity to think about what we need to have to build back better, and agriculture is going to be the basis of that. Out of every adversity comes a lot of opportunity, and we believe that by bringing people together to talk about the future of our economy, it's more important now than it ever was. The African Forum on Green Economy, investing in natural capital for a resilient Africa, is now, like I said, a 3-month exchange of conversation that's going to be held online. And welcome back to all of you that joined on the last session that we held on water a couple of weeks ago now. And that conversation has continued not just from the webinar, but also online and through conversations that people have had bilaterally as well. Today's webinar is, like I said, one of the most important topics. It's about agriculture. It's one of Africa's greatest sectors, and it touches all stakeholders. Before we hear from today's experts, though, I'd like to just give a quick introduction to what some of these terms that we're banding around here, green economy, natural capital, what they actually mean. So a green economy is one that we believe is possible to achieve a sustainable and inclusive economy, which supports prosperity for everyone, while also operating within the ecological limits of the planet. This requires that the environment and society are thriving together, that policy is inclusive of everyone. Achieving a green economy is a complicated process, as many of you will know, but many countries are already taking significant steps, including several in Africa. And we think that African countries have a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate green economic leadership to the rest of the world. Definitely recommend going to see the Green Economy Coalition websites. They've got a lot of resources on there that you can have a look at to find out more about what green economy is. So definitely take a look at that and these 5 different processes that they're following here about measuring and governing, reforming financial systems, greening economic sectors, tackling inequality, and then valuing nature, which leads us on to natural capital. So natural capital is the stock of resources that flow to combine to yield a flow of benefits to people, okay? So this is water, this is air, this is pollination, this is climate regulation, well-being. And most of the time we take these things for granted. And because we take them for granted, they're overexploited, they're undervalued, and they're misunderstood. One really important thing here about capitals is that we're not always looking for a monetary value, okay? People often confuse this and think we're looking at money. Money is a great way to think about value, but value is the relative importance and worth of something. It's what it means to us. It's what it means to us individually, what it means to us as a community. If we include that value in something, we can include it as a qualitative amount. You know, this is better than that one. We can include it as a value of money if we wanted to, but it doesn't always have to be done in money. It doesn't always have to have a dollar price on it. But framing natural capital as an asset means that we can start thinking of nature and the importance that it brings to us in ways that we weren't thinking about it before. And hopefully that will help us to change the agricultural system and to build upon the good practices that we've got there. For this, you can have a look at the coalition websites that I'm fortunate to run. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. I'm Mark Goff. I'm the CEO of the Capitals Coalition, which brings together the Natural Capital Coalition and the Social and Human Capital Coalition. So we're looking across not just nature, but people and society as well. If we can move on, Hannah. So the Green Economy and the Natural Capital Coalition both have very active communities all around the world and in Africa. And what we're trying to do through this webinar series and through this event is trying to bring those together, to build those stakeholder groups, connect them up with each other so that we can encourage collaboration across natural capital and green economy throughout Africa. And we know that actually you cannot do one without the other. You can't have a green economy without actually understanding the benefits, the impacts and dependencies that you have upon nature. And those natural capital benefits are going to help us to create that green economy for all people. So committing to this collaborative action for investing in natural capital and green economy over this next decade, building up to the Sustainable Development Goals, is going to be essential. And we really see Africa as being a leading light in being able to do this. Now I'd like to hand over to a good friend of mine, Renaud, who's going to lead us through the webinar here today. So over to you, Renaud.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark, for that introduction. Indeed, my name is Renaud Lapère, and I'm working at the International Programs Department at WWF France. I'm based in Paris, and as you can see, I'm locked down like most of you in front of my computer. Welcome to the second session of the African Forum on Green Economy, dedicated to agriculture. The first one was dedicated to water quantity and water quality, so was very related, of course, to agriculture. But now we will today deep dive into agriculture. As Mark rightfully said, agriculture is a critical part of Africa's economy and is most at risk from environmental pressure, climate change, and natural capital disruption. The World Bank report in 2018, the Changing Wealth of Nations report, showed very nicely that the value of global agricultural land has more than doubled from 1994 to 2014, and especially in sub-Saharan Africa. So that means that as a natural asset, agricultural lands are very important to sub-Saharan Africa wealth. However, it needs to be maintained, it needs to be invested in, and the same report showed that indeed between 1995 and 2014, the per capita value of agricultural land has declined in sub-Saharan Africa. That's the same study that say that, and that shows that, of course, there is the issue of demographic growth, but then there is the issue of productivity, and most importantly, there is the issue of sustainability of green economy and investment into agricultural land. So it really depends on natural capital, and agriculture has a lot of great impact on natural capital. So new methodologies, new methods needs to be developed, and they need to be funded in order to promote the emergence of a resilient, remunerative agriculture that preserves natural capital, and it delivers green growth and alleviates rural poverty. Of course, that entails to design sound public policy at the regional, national, and local levels, as well as putting in place the right institution and enabling condition. There are 2 points that I wanted just to mention on this issue of putting right institutions and enabling condition in place. The first one is that assessing the different values, and Mark rightfully said that there are different values of agricultural land. It's not only about monetary values, it's about the value we put into that agricultural land from ourselves, from our earth. So assessing the different values of natural capital for agriculture is the first step in order to assist private and public key stakeholders in taking wise economic decisions. In this regard, I just wanted to mention one, that useful valuation and accounting system are currently emerging, and one that I wanted to mention was of course the triple depression line accounting model that could help to better integrate the changing value of natural assets in our agricultural model. The second thing that I wanted to mention before handing over to our very good speakers is the issue of funding. Of course, we need to have new and additional funding to fund new agricultural models. It's a critical second pillar, and it can be done through public-private multi-stakeholder partnerships, and I'm sure that our speaker will talk about it. I would just mention here the public-private partnership, for example, the Africa Agricultural and Trade Investment Fund. I can also of course, mention the Land Degradation Neutrality Fund, LDNF, which is up and running now. And I could also mention the Livelihoods Fund for Family Farming, which have been created by 2 private sector companies, which is Danone and Mars. All of those models actually help companies to transform their supply chains from small family farms, and it's also create benefits for the entire society through biodiversity preservation, water resources management, and CO2 sequestration. So we really need to find new models and to fund those new models. And we have 4 speakers to discuss about this today. Maybe we can show the slide on the speakers now. Yes. First of all, we will, of course, go to Uganda with Catherine Ainamani. Sorry if I'm not spelling your name rightfully. She's coordinator of the Sustainable Food Forum at the Kabale Municipality Development Foundation. We'll have also Lucy Mushoki. She's the CEO of the Pan-African Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Consortium. She's based in Nairobi. Then followed by Shakespeare Mudombi from the from the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies, so TIPS in South Africa, based in Pretoria. And then Charles Karanga is the Regional Technical Coordinator of Forest Landscape and Livelihoods Programs at the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Eastern and Southern Africa is based between Kigali and Nairobi. What is very important here is that we have the great chance of having 4 different speakers. They're coming from research, they're coming from the private sector, they're coming from the international NGOs in the field of conservation. So we have a big wealth of different visions on agriculture. And we want this discussion to be very collaborative. Maybe, Anna, you could move to the precedent slide, the previous slide. We just want to make it very collaborative to make sure that everyone has the chance to ask his question. So if you have a question, you put it in the Q&A section. We will respond to all your questions after all speakers have presented their cases. So Q&A for your questions. And then if you have a general comment, then you can go in the chat section to share any information or to have a general comment to all of us. So without further ado, I will move to hand over to Catherine from the Kabale district in Uganda. Catherine, over to you. Catherine, can we hear Catherine?
I think we've lost Catherine, actually. We'll have to wait for her to come back. So maybe...
Yes, I think we'll move to, in that case, we'll move to Lucy. So from Uganda, we'll move to Nairobi. Lucy, over to you. Thank you very much for this.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for hosting us today. As you've been told, my name is Lucy Muchoki. I'm running the Pan-African Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Consortium. This is a business-driven platform that brings different stakeholders working along the value chain and to just support them, ensuring that they are able to achieve sustainable businesses. The reason we did this is because we realized that there's a lot of information out there and we're not able to share this information amongst ourselves. At the same time, we realized that other organizations like Forum for Agriculture Research in Africa, FARA, that's the researchers, they're all well coordinated. So we thought it's important for us as the private sector to get ourselves coordinated, at the same time preparing for the big inter-Africa trade, which you all know we signed last year, and perhaps by June, we were supposed to be launching all these and start working together to drive the intra-Africa trade. At the same time, working with other partners like yourself, we need to continue with our business working together. Today, I want to come back to the topic of the day, green economy. I'm afraid, and I apologize that my slide is not there. we've been having a lot of issues here in Kenya, and a number of activities that we are involved in, and they're quite heavy. It's quite a lot of work going up and down, and we have created what we call a war room and activities around the war room. So without wasting much time, I'll tell you that we in... Hello?
Yes, please. Yes, please, Lucy. We hear you.
Okay, I thought someone was speaking. So I'll just quickly respond to why do I feel that Africa has such a great opportunity for growing sustainable green economy. First, we all understand from our perspective, our green economy is just attaining those sustainable businesses. And it's very simple, sustainable businesses which take care of our environment. We've been discussing this, and I'll take the example of Kenya, where I have been running a project under what we call the Switch Africa Green SAG. That is a European funded program. In this program, what we have been doing is identifying those businesses that are able to, they're addressing green, the virtues and the values of business. And that's what is all about green economy. So what we have been doing in Kenya is addressing the usage of water. How much water are you using? The usage of electricity. How much power are you consuming? How are you tracking your sustainable, your logistics and the supplies? And in the end of the day, what you realize, green economy helps in attaining the best businesses, more productive and more better and more. They're getting us better businesses with more profits, as opposed to those who have not been following or aligning themselves to these few guidelines, checking on your water, checking on your sustainable sourcing, checking on your electricity consumption, and how innovative are you? What innovations are you utilizing? So basically, I believe that the green economy has such a huge potential in our continent today. The reason is, first and foremost, Africa has the youngest population. And the youngest population, we all know they're very, very innovative. Kenya, for example, we have been able to change the whole world, the whole thinking by using the M-Pesa, the money that we have been sending using our mobile phone. So we clearly know that we can do it. We have the innovation. We are able to use that digital very well and be able to transform the economy, not by using those innovations. I have realized quite a number of young people are quite engaged with a lot of other innovations. For instance, using the dryers instead of using the solar dryers, which they are making here. They don't have to use the usual electricity, which of course is quite expensive and at the same time not friendly for our environment. So I can see quite a number of innovations that are coming up. And luckily, I can see that they're well educated. They're young, educated, and because of this, they're able to pick up things faster. So when we start our awareness campaign, we realize that they're able to pick up the virtues that we are talking about. They're able to take them through, and they're able to pick it up and share it among themselves. And before we realize, they're even better than us. So knowing that agriculture is the mainstay in Africa, I really believe that we really have a big opportunity here in this continent to drive the green economy. We are set, we are ready, and we believe that this is the time for Africa. And Africa is going to adopt those sustainable green models that are able to transform our economy.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for this very insightful speech, especially about Africa as a great asset and the youth as a great asset. We'll move directly to Catherine now, back from Kabale district, Uganda. Catherine, The floor is yours. Catherine?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Catherine, and good to hear you.
Yeah, so hello.
Yes, please. You can go.
Yeah, so I'm Catherine Ainamani from Kavale Municipality Development Foundation, and I'm the coordinator for Sustainable Food Forum. It was set up by Kavale Municipality Foundation. It's found in southwestern part of Uganda. It was created 2010, as you're seeing in the slides, by Mrs. Kasule Mebo. And the two entrepreneurs established the KMDF as a small community-based organization in 2010 with operations in one division of the municipality, and later expanded it. So now KMDF operations are in all the 3 divisions of the municipality, covering 12 parishes and 72 local communities. So as I had told you, the Sustainable Food Forum came up with different stakeholders working to develop for the carbon and resource efficient urban food systems by focusing on 3 themes. So the 3 themes are growing local food, delivering local food, and enjoying the local food. So below the
Yes, Catherine?
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
You hear?
Yes.
Yeah, so on the growing local food, we grow fruits and vegetables in the municipality gardens, parks and rooftops, balconies and direct lands, etc. Then delivering will deliver local food using opportunities. So
Catherine, I think you're mute or your connection is very unstable. Let me try 30 seconds with Catherine, or otherwise we'll have to move to our next speaker, maybe Shakespeare. Do we have Catherine online? If not,
maybe Renaud, just while we're waiting there, just to remind everyone that there's a Q&A section as well. So do please come through with questions and add them to the Q&A section, and we'll be picking up those in a moment. Just give Catherine a little bit more, I think, maybe, Renaud. Maybe we do need to move on.
Catherine, are you back?
Catherine? Maybe I would propose that we would move to Dr. Shakespeare Mundambi from TIPS in South Africa, if you would agree with me. Yes, Shakespeare, are you here? Sorry, everyone, for these connection problems, which of course are part of this new situation that we are all facing here, where we have to be locked down at home and internet connection were not initially sought to be as powerful as if everyone would use internet exactly at the same time everywhere. So Shakespeare, are you with us from Pretoria?
Yeah, yes, I'm ready.
So the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Shakespeare.
Right. Okay, thank you everyone. My name is Ashe XPM Dokie. I work as a sustainable growth economist at the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies. TIPS is an independent non-profit economic research organization that is based in Pretoria, South Africa, and we do a lot of cross-cutting research, but with a strong bias on industrial policy. So, but today the focus of my presentation will be mostly on the work that we do in the agricultural sector, where we have done a lot of work looking at various individual value chains. These include sugarcane, dairy, medicinal cannabis, soybeans, poultry, wines, and including farm.
No, go ahead, Shakespeare. It's just, can we, all of us, stay mute while Shakespeare is presenting his very great job?
Oh, all right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I was just highlighting that we do a lot of research in looking at various value chains, sugarcane, dairy, medicinal cannabis, soybeans, poultry, and eggs. And also we have done work looking at farming 4.0 and agro-processing machinery value chains. So today, the focus of the presentation, I will dwell more on two streams of research. Firstly, the work that we have done that relates to sector job resilience plans. And also the other one is small business development in the climate change adaptation space. And here, these presentations are just to sort of highlight some of the things or some of the initiatives that are already happening that relate to the green economy. Can we move to the next slide? So in terms of the sector job resilience plans, this is just an initiative that was motivated by the National Climate Change Response White Paper, which sort of motivated the need to have those sector job resilience plans. And the main motive is just to help map the vulnerability of different stakeholders in the different sectors and see where attention needs to be focused. So we have done the approach that was taken by TIPS was to look at 5 main value chains. That is the coal value chain, metals, petroleum-based transport, agriculture, and tourism. And here I will just sort of highlight a few things about the agricultural value chain. I won't go into detail because of time, but one key thing that I just want to highlight that in the context of the green economy, a critical aspect is to understand what's the status quo. And doing things like the sector job resilience plans helps to understand which sort of actors or stakeholders will be impacted more by the impacts of climate change, whether it's direct impacts that affect productivity or transition-related risks that would affect their livelihoods and so forth. So for example, in this mapping, we sort of find or see that maybe farm workers, small businesses, and emerging farmers will be impacted more by climate change. So having that picture that shows the extent of vulnerability of different actors will help sort of to map ways that we can sort of frame green economy initiatives that are sort of enable a sector-wide transformation that is needed. So now I will just sort of highlight also some of the work that we have been doing, particularly in looking at the small business development in the climate change adaptation space. And the main aspect that we were looking at was to say the impacts of climate change bring a lot of challenges for different actors. But with it also there are opportunities. But the critical aspect is to understand, to say, for small businesses, how can they tap into those opportunities? And how can they sort of benefit from some of the initiatives? Because the core aspect of green economy is to say the inclusion of everyone or leave no one behind. So in this research, what we did, we focused on 3 categories or 3 broad sectors, particularly the energy market, water and sanitation, and also the agricultural value chain. So I will highlight 2 case studies that we focused on in the agricultural sector that just to highlight what's happening in the sector. So the first case study was looking at sustainable farming whilst ensuring food security. This is on the next slide, sir. So the first case study is looking at the sustainable farming and food security, which had an approach of more like a farming 4.0. And this is sort of documents the experience of an entrepreneur who is called Wolfgang von Lepper, who is the founder of My Smart Farm. So what they've been doing with this approach was to sort of seek to provide a complete package that consists of hardware, software, and technical expertise that is needed by the farmers to improve their farming operations. So the approach that's taken by My Smart Farm is to enable farmers to be more proactive rather than reactive to the challenges that they face. So they use a specially developed app that has different sensors that will be placed on different points on the farms, but this helps to collect data on the climate variables, soil moisture, water, and input usage. But the advantage of this is to help sort of enhance efficiency on the farms and so forth. So it improves the decision-making process for the farmers. Then the other case study was looking at the application of hydroponics to enhance food security. And this is an initiative by two young scientists, that is Moleka and Tumelo Pule. They are the founders of AB Farms. But what they are doing is they are using hydroponics to sort of enhance food security. But one critical aspect is that these young innovators are engineers by training. So they are operating in the Western Area Agri-Park. But when they moved into that Agri-Park, there was a hydroponic system that was already installed. But what they found out was that the system wasn't working properly according to their needs. And one key challenge, particularly in South Africa, relates to load shedding. And most of the hydroponic systems that are coming from international suppliers maybe require continuous usage of electricity. So what these young innovators did was to devise their own bucket hydroponic system that can work even with load shedding. So it's more like tailor-making the system to the local conditions. So this is what we are just trying to highlight, that in terms of transition towards the green economy in the agricultural sector, the most important aspect, or the critical aspect, is to ensuring that there is availability of appropriate technologies suited to the local context. So for example, the issue of electricity is a critical issue in South Africa and the rest of the continent. So we need such systems that can work, or that can work even without the continuous supply of electricity. So as a way forward, or as a conclusion, I would just say one critical aspect in terms of the transition towards a green economy in the agricultural sector is to enable young innovators, to give them the space to bring out their innovations. Particularly the key challenge that we found out was the issue of funding to support their innovations. As we know, most of the innovations in the green economy space, these are new technologies, and they haven't been tried. So there is a lot of experimentation, a lot of failure, and success will be, at the end, will be sort of realized. But in that process, these innovators would face a lot of challenges. So one critical aspect that we are sort of motivating or recommending would be to say there is need for a comprehensive package, particularly for young innovators in that space, that they need particularly financing towards their innovations, and also a green economy focused incubation programs that sort of understand the structure of the market, particularly looking at green economy products. So those are some of the findings that we did as at TIPS. And just to highlight that, based on the research, it's important that we look at the sort of the status quo and try to map green economy initiatives that are suited to local conditions, and that take into consideration the different needs of different people in the different contexts. So this is just a snapshot in terms of some of the work that we do at TIPS, but we have a lot of other research work that we have done that relates to the green economy and sustainable development. But in short, this is some of the insights that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shakespeare. Thank you very much. And again, exactly as Lucy rightfully pointed out, we are talking about the use, and we are talking about innovations, and we know that there is a great and a large capacity to do that in Africa. Let me now move to Charles Karanga, a Regional Technical Coordinator of Forest and Landscape at IUCN Eastern and Southern Africa. Charles, the floor is yours. Charles? You're mute? Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. And,
exactly, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for inviting me to speak to this very interesting forum, especially the topic of agriculture and how it contributes to the overall green economy across the continent. And I totally agree with the moderator. I think Africa significantly benefits a lot, and we count actually quite big size of population, over 70% of African population living on agriculture, which makes it an outstanding sector in terms of contribution to people's livelihoods, especially smallholder farmers. But also we note the very significant contribution of agriculture at the GDP level of the continent. And this again makes it a very outstanding and huge on the continent. However, it also one of the sectors that faces very significant challenge. And this particular discussion on placing the nature at the core or in the middle or at the center of agriculture is very relevant within the context Africa is in today. IUCN is working across the continent. Most of people on the webinar probably knows already IUCN. I don't need to talk about it a lot. But our program in Eastern Southern Africa works across 24 countries. And one of the work we are doing is work with the countries to have degradation trends across the continent. And this is done through two major initiatives. One is a global initiative, the other one is a Pan-African led initiative. The global one is called the Bond Challenge. Bond Challenge initiative is aiming at bringing under restoration 150 million hectares globally under restoration by 2020, which actually is ending this year, but has also been extended together with the New York Declaration on Forest to have declaration and put under restoration 350 million hectares by 2030. Now, the African continent took a very huge ambition and committed to restore 100 million hectares of degraded lands by 2030. And as we speak today, I will share some material later. Nearly 127 millions of hectares are under commitments within across 22 countries in Africa. So that shows you already that countries in Africa are thinking about issues that are affecting agriculture, including, as you can see on my first slide, is really declining soil fertility due to soil erosion, poor land management, deforestation and degradation issues around there, but also issues related to water quality and availability of water because of upstream degradation and poor management. And of course, that whole goes along within the whole production cycle. And this particular initiative on the continent level is looking at how that can be addressed. So my focus this morning or this afternoon actually, is really looking at forest landscape restoration as a topic within agriculture sector. And I wanted to highlight two major things. One is that agriculture is not a standalone sector. It happens within a landscape of other sectors. So you are talking about infrastructure, you are talking about other sectors like water, energy, you are talking about other sectors where services happen, but also you are talking about settlements and in the same landscapes. So how do you make sure within that particular landscape, agriculture remains resilient? Depends, of course, on that integrated way of looking at the landscape level. And some of these issues we are talking about are, of course, exaggerated by increase of population, among other things. And all of this together combined, of course, affects agricultural productivity. One of the other points that I wanted to highlight as we talk about this is that sometimes there is a misunderstanding on what is forest landscape restoration. And the people tend to think maybe someone is talking just about forest. Not really. Forest landscape restoration as it is, you are basically talking about a process of regaining ecological functionality within a landscape, which enhances human well-being across degraded area. But also you are talking about restoring healthy of lands and then be able to secure the needs of people in a very multiple way. You are securing not only food, but also water, but also other needs that are really there within the landscapes. Next slide. So this slide just briefly shows what are we looking at when we talk about restoration in agricultural area, and considering that, as I said, agriculture happens within a landscape. Again, you are looking at agriculture. When you see how it happens today, it's a choice countries are making, either to invest in agricultural resilient systems. Just to put in the full slide, please. Keep going. Yes, that's it. And okay. So and it's really important to balance intensification agriculture or intensified productivity and sustained productivity. So that's very, very important in terms of how we decide or how we make choices in investing in sustainable landscape management. It's also important to balance restoration of that ecological functionality within a landscape, within an agroforestry and silvopastoral land, and sustain again that productivity. And investing in sustainable agriculture or climate smart agriculture, whatever you call it, conservation agriculture, as far as you have that picture of sustaining that productivity, because that risks of course intensifying, but also not being able to sustain is very important. So degradation and degraded lands can also be, of course, turned into productive lands. And if you invest in restoring that land using a mixture systems of agroforestry, silvopastoral systems, all this can generate a very significant return. But also beyond that, you are restoring other ecosystem services, water availability, but also biodiversity. Pollination was one of the very interesting topics we talked about here. That is very critical in sustaining agriculture. But also, again, you are also avoiding deforestation by bringing back vegetation cover, and you know all what forest role in agriculture, basically moderating the whole rain patterns is very important. Next. And again, we need to very carefully define what we are doing and the benefits you are bringing out. And I want to end by saying that, again, as we say, landscape, there's that multiple actors. And this is my last slide. There's a multiple, what's the last slide? There's a multiple actors working in a landscape. And what is very importantly needed is, from investment to technical to policy, there's a need really to work together and coordinate between different sectors. I mentioned, for example, agriculture, environment, infrastructure, just to name a few. There's a need to really work together if you want that sustainable and productive landscapes. But also, I want just to put just a few points as I close. I think it's very important to recognize that farmers protect soils, achieve land health, but again, it's not only that. They also need inclusive policies, access to finance, to be able to continue with the resilient food production systems. Number two, agriculture is not, again, a standalone sector. You need to look at that within multiple players, hence a need for coordinated action with a cross-sectoral landscape approach. One of the key drivers is of course, accelerated deforestation, and there's an important need to invest in restoration, but also access to extension services. You may have observed in different countries a decline in that access, then investing in access to sustainable land management practices is very, very essential for smallholder farmers. And finally, keep watching. IUCN is producing a very interesting report on agriculture. It's called the Common Grounds. It will be out very soon in June, and we'll be laying out a guideline for policy and investments that safeguard land health as foundation for sustainable intensification of agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Charles. We are running a little bit out of time. We still have like 12 minutes for question and answer. That's the Q&A sessions. Sorry very much to Catherine, because we will not have time to have your full presentation because of internet connection issues, but we'll start with questions related to your work, so that you can have like 2 to 3 minutes to explain your views on agricultural issues and challenges also in Kabale district in Uganda. So I guess the question I would ask you, Catherine, specifically to you, Catherine, would be, what are the needs? Actually, what are the barriers? It was a question that was asked in the Q&A box. It was, what are the barriers which exist today in order to actually bring those new models to scale? You talked about agriculture on rooftops. You talked about urban agriculture in the Kabale district. Now, can you tell us more about what are the barriers that exist today to move those models to the next levels? And what are the needs, according to you, in order to move those models to the next levels? Catherine, over to you.
Hello, thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the network is becoming a problem.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so as you all know, our diets are not just hurting our health, but also the ecosystem that supports you.
I think we are different. Catherine, I think.
Yes, please.
I think you did cut because of the internet connections. Can you, we'll make it a last try. Go ahead.
Yeah, so food is among the largest drivers of global environment change, contributing to climatic change, biodiversity loss, freshwater, interference with the global nitrogen and phosphorus cycles. So research shows that by 30% by 2050, the world is in a climatic crisis causing droughts, floods, and desertification, reducing our ability to feed everyone on the planet. So in Kabale, Uganda, unsustainable production of food is greatly affecting the environment. And to address this challenge in 2017, we launched a sustainable food initiative to create more resilient and inclusive food systems. So through the Sustainable Food Initiative, we seek to support opportunities that will accelerate the shift to a sustainable, fair, and inclusive food system in Kabale municipality. So the initiative seeks to create a food system that produces food without depleting the planet. The initiative is supporting urban communities to develop low carbon and resource-efficient urban food systems. Through this initiative, actually, KMDF also is supporting several enterprises that are working to address the need for sustainable food in Kabale municipality and contribute to supporting a lively and diverse local economy, that is jobs and skills. So, and also to creating a better environment with green spaces, urban design, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and to supporting more health and well-being amongst the population, inspiring behavior change, making it easier for people to make better choices. So in 2018, we implemented projects, a pilot project of accelerating opportunities for sustainable food in urban communities of Kabale municipality, southwestern Uganda. So the sustainable food initiatives that we've supported, as I had told you when I was beginning, when network was on and off, it includes themes of growing, delivering, and enjoying. So I'll not go deep because of time into these themes, but what I can add on is that the Sustainable Food Initiative led to the creation of a Sustainable Food Forum, which brings together all the 20 piloted sustainable food production enterprises and different stakeholders. So members of the Sustainable Forum include individuals, farmers, food producers, enterprises, growing sustainable local foods, food suppliers, food distributors, food retailers, purchasing groups, hotels, canteens, restaurants, to mention but a few. So to achieve this goal, these 3 themes of growing, delivering, and enjoying food have been selected by us, and all the actions we're implementing fall under these themes. So The 3 teams will be implementing their Sustainable Food Initiative Strategy 2019, 2020, 2023 to 2024. So their team of growth will support initiatives that focus on all possible ways to grow sustainable food near or in the municipality.
Thank you.
Ways to distribute. Yes, please.
No, thank you very much, Catherine. Just to let the other speakers as well respond to the question. So, Lucy, maybe one specific question to you that was asked at the very beginning of your presentation. Of course, you mentioned the fact that there's going to be the big trade movement also in Africa. So that means that there's going to be an increased trade in agricultural products in Africa, but that also entails risk that a number of big companies, of big transnational companies, big international companies will necessarily maybe try to grab more agricultural, more natural capital for their own profit. So how can we make sure that actually with that development of trade, natural capital is not depleted and agricultural can still be sustainable? What is your view on that, Lucy?
Frankly speaking, I know that there's always been this fear about the multinationals coming into Africa and grabbing the land. But it's more of a fear because if I look at the scenario right currently, there's been a lot of partnerships between African countries and a number of the multinationals. I'll just give a case sample. When you look at Unilever and how they source their products, they tend to source and work, they're trying to work more with the Africans farmers, especially the smallholder farmers. The only problem that has been there is the competitiveness of our production. So if Africa can be able to address the competitiveness, which comes back to the same simple issues, and I like understanding and analyzing green economy in terms of business. I'm a business person, and I think every time we relay the message to our fellow business people, we tell them how green economy is a lifestyle, is part of your business. When you observe this ends up giving you more profits. You end up having a productive and a more profitable business. So to me, the issue of competition, to address it, then I would not see partnering with the multinationals as if I wouldn't like to see it as a threat. I would like to look at it in terms of partnerships, because in this life, you cannot work alone. You must look for partners that add value. I know that some of them have abused that, and that's why you hear people saying how they're going to, do they take care of the environment? Some of them have abused, but I think now we are very clear. The governments are becoming very clear on those the policies that we are putting together. And that's the reason why we have these platforms. Our platforms is to engage the government, put those policies, push our agenda to the government. And I'm seeing this working very well. In Kenya today, we have different engagement with the government, from the ministers, what we call the cabinet secretary meetings. What we are not able to resolve at the cabinet secretaries meeting, we go to the president and we have the presidential roundtable. So in short, there's a lot of awareness. We're starting to understand how to engage one another through a meaningful public-private partnerships. And those issues have been discussed, have been put on the table. There's another question I saw. How can we ensure that this green economy becomes sustainable and it's outscaled? One of the issues that we have been pushing the government is to ensure that there's some incentives that we need to ensure that we support those companies that are attaining or aligning themselves into the green economy practices. Let us give them incentives, and so that the others can also be able to emulate.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. Sorry for cutting short of you. I'm a little bit rude from my side, but I just want to give 1 minute to each Shakespeare and Charles before Mark is closing the session, because we are running out of time. We have like 2 to 3 minutes, left. So Shakespeare, first, from a business person perspective, what are the needs? You talked about innovation. What are the needs in order to bring all the very nice example you showed to the next level? Because what we need, we don't need pilots anymore. What we need is to bring those models to scale. So what are the needs in 30 seconds?
Okay, in terms of the needs, what we sort of tried to map, it's a paper that I sort of that I did send, the one on small business development, which is actually in detail the different sort of business models that we tried to map based on the different things that we thought in terms of the adaptation product. So for example, we would map different products, for example, products that sort of transfer risk, for example, like insurance in the agricultural sector and micro-insurance for smallholder farmers. Those are some of the things that we tried to map the models that can be applied in the different settings. There are some products that can sort of...
Can we mute, please? Yes, no, can we mute all of us except Shakespeare? Thank you. Go ahead, Shakespeare.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying, in terms of there are different products that can be sort of adopted at a larger scale, particularly in trying to sort of enable the smallholder farmers to cushion them from risks like the impacts of climate change. Particularly insurance is one thing that is a big challenge, and also there is need to ensure that the technologies that are there. So sorry.
No, go ahead. Now, let me just move to Charles. Let me take that opportunity to move to Charles. From the conservation community point of view, Charles, from IUCN community point of view, what is needed to make sure that, of course, there is a growth in agricultural products in Africa because we need it, but of course that invest in natural capital conservation?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think overall, players in the natural sector, if you want to call it, they are becoming aware of the role of the nature in sustaining business. IUCN is championing, together with the other international, local, community organizations, something called the nature-based solutions. And nature-based solutions basically means that you are looking at nature as a mother and a sustainer to all investments, be service-based, be land-based, be infrastructure-based, be ecosystem service-based, such as water, electricity, agricultural productivity, to name a few. So, and that's probably, for me, the way we need to move forward in terms of investment. Nature-based solutions, approach to investment, nature-based solution, approach to agriculture, nature-based solution, approach to infrastructure development is very critical. And there's a lot of work being done out there, developing guidelines, investing in capacity development for government leaders to be able to understand that concept better, but also more importantly, investors. Private sector has money and they need to direct the investment into green investment deals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. That's almost a very good conclusion. So we talked about, of course, the greatness of the youth of Africa and their ability to grab innovation and to grab innovation way more than we do ourselves. We talked about the private sector. We talked about the need for financial services and financial mechanism to fund those new agricultural models that will lead us to a just transition. And we talked about nature-based solutions because at the end of the day, all of those models, they have to be linked. They have to be seriously tied to nature. And I think that's a good conclusion from our side. Let me just, before I hand over to Mark, let me just, of course, mention again that you can go on the African Forum on Green Economy website on this session, where you will be able to access documents and videos that will be linked to that session. For some technical reason, we haven't managed to have those on the web page before the session, but now we will move on those web page after the session, immediately after the session. So if you want to know more about this, then you have a lot of resources on the Green Economy website, on the Natural Capital Coalition website, and on this African Green Economy website. Thank you all. Thanks, of course, to our esteemed 4 speakers. Catherine is already back to Uganda because of technical problems. So hand over to you, Mark, and thank you all.
Thank you, Renaud. And I've really enjoyed the enthusiasm and positivity here about how business is going to play an important part, how all of this is connected. And obviously, with nature-based solutions, it's not yet another thing. It has to use natural capital to be able to do that. It builds through to a green economy. All of these things are connected. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about our speakers, they'll be sharing more detailed presentations with you and documents with you during this week. All of the speakers and all of the participants on this will connect you up. You'll be able to add to the website. A final reminder that we'll be running another one of these, another 3-4 topics now. Finance is the next one in 2 weeks' time, then infrastructure, then data, and then how do we bring all of this together to create the change that we need to have to create a new normal on the back of this coronavirus that we're facing at the moment. Thank you once again from my side to everyone that's taken part today. Have a good day, keep safe and keep well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.